Hey there, everyone. Welcome to MLTV, where we have fun with Hindley Miner type systems and talk about uh, OCaml, ReScript, ReasonML with good people from the community and have fun with silly questions. I'm Gabriel, and I'm also known as Fake Nichols on the social media. I run a course for ReScript for Brazilians. I also work at Walnut, which is it's a great company. You should check out. It's walnut.io. And yeah, Dave.
I'm David. I'm from Barcelona. I work remote for Ahrefs. I have been coding OCaml Reason for 2 or 3 years now professionally. So yeah, we bring you this show to interview all the people that are really interesting in this community. Even though it's a little bit small, we have a lot of people who are crazy smart. So we try to answer some silly questions and try to meet them there. So today we are really happy to have Hongbo, the author and creator and maintainer of ReScript compiler, also known before as BuckleScript. Let's welcome him to the show today.
Hi everyone, my name is Hongbo. I'm the maintainer of the ReScript. It's my pleasure to chat with Gabriel and David about the ReScript and the community today. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for
Amazing.
coming.
Yeah, it's great to have
That's
you on
very
board
good.
here. Yeah,
Cool.
very excited for
Cool.
the show.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have almost like 1 hour interview, but I'm pretty sure that I can be 6-7 hours asking questions to you nonstop. Let's not do that kind of pain. But yeah, we'll try to squeeze all of those in 1 hour. So first of all, how many languages do you speak?
Actually, when I was a student, I learned a lot of language, like a lot of exotic language. But I think there are three language, which is I think I have the expert level. First, the ReScript, of course, and C and OCaml. The C program language is my first program language, and yeah, so I learned a lot. We actually cannot work around it if you do some low-level programming, right? And
Okay.
OCaml. So for C and OCaml, for these two language, when I read the source code, I can pretty much imagine like how the assembly code is like the. So yeah, that's the three kind of language actually I'm most familiar with. Yeah, I
Cool.
also like learn some exotic language. I'm not an expert. Like I learned a lot in Haskell, in Cork, and in
Nice.
Agda and F sharp. Of course, and JavaScript. Yeah, and Common Lisp. Actually, I'm a big fan of the Common Lisp, but I don't think I'm the expert in this kind of language.
Okay. Perfect. So can you explain for the ones that you might not like influenced or they might know you, how can you explain about yourself?
Explain myself.
Yeah, just describe yourself.
Yeah. So uh, I so I was a programmer. Yeah. I was a function programmer. So I get into the function programming via the F sharp, which is the in the Microsoft research. Then
Right.
actually I got very super impressed by the language, so I decided to do a PhD in a function programming. That's why
Wow.
how I come from the China to US in the University of Pennsylvania to do some. Then I got to know like the Haskell from the Stephanie, and also there are also OCaml people in the University in Penn. I also did a lot of meta programming in then I get acknowledged by the OCaml committee. And then uh, for some reason, for some special reason, I joined Bloomberg.
Right.
Uh, Working in OCaml language, I think is a dialect of OCaml. Then yeah, I made the BuckleScript when I was in Bloomberg and get open
Right.
source. Yeah, then I get back to my hometown. Yeah, and I got hired by the Meta to continue working on
Nice.
the script.
Nice. Yeah, we're gonna ask a lot of questions about like how you started the project and how you end up in Facebook or Meta. So before that, you mentioned that you started learning about OCaml in University of Pennsylvania, if I got right. But you came from F#. So you did the PhD of F# and then you learn about OCaml.
No,
Is that correct?
I get hooked into function programming by F#.
Right.
So the thing is, when you get into something in depth, like how the monads works, right? Like there's something called a computation expression in F#. So it can it's very hard for you to understand computation expression by reading the F# source code. So I went to the Haskell for more help. Then I get into the category theory and then category theory, and then
Okay.
Then
okay, and then all the way down. Right.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yes.
So you joined Bloomberg. And Bloomberg, you started a project called BuckleScript.
Yes.
How the project started? Like, what was the problem that Bloomberg was trying to solve?
Yeah, it was my hobby project. Started as my hobby project. So I get to write OCaml in Bloomberg, but in Bloomberg back to 2014, there are already like tens of millions of line code written in JavaScript for the UI.
Right.
So it's a huge repo, like the 8 years ago. I was super impressed by the power of JavaScript, and it's run very fast. So actually, I like the language. I like the JavaScript language, except it's not maintainable. So
right.
I really like that.
No, it makes sense. Like it's not. I wouldn't say it's a bad thing. It's kind of like the power and the problems of JavaScript.
I think the thing is, back to 8 years ago, I was already pretty familiar with the compiler of the OCaml. So I think after you erase the type system stuff, the two languages are pretty much pretty close. So I started my hobby project, and it doesn't take too long. I think like 2 months weekend time. I get get my demo, which compile OCaml to JavaScript, and I have a very fancy demo using the JS OCaml to compile the compiler to the browser. So I present it to my boss.
Right. So some sort of playground.
Yeah. So it's pretty fast. Having the compiler and my boss is French. He's French. French people like the OCaml. So he was like super impressed, and I'm very lucky to get a sponsor by Bloomberg to work on it. And then
after you have it as a project, Bloomberg said, work on it full time. We might write our front end with this someday.
Not really. So Bloomberg just like that's funny to me to like do the because my boss is I convinced my boss and it's open source and it has received some good reception from the external community. They think it's a good one, so they sponsor me to work on full time for almost like 3 years. I think it's for 3 years. Yeah.
Nice. So actually, did Bloomberg used BuckleScript at some point, or they were just sponsoring you?
So I left Bloomberg in 2017. I cannot say anything after I leave the Bloomberg. So before 2017, I think there's some like the research prototype, but not in production.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So and when you started and you start getting like working full time, what did you thought about the project? What were the goals? Or what were the dreams of the project?
Yeah. Actually, I'm very pragmatic. So so I like the OCaml and the ML like language, and so my goal is like to make a language which you can use it for your daily job. So you don't need to like write code in a weekend. So for function programmer, the most people,
Yeah.
if you cannot use it in your day job. That's my main goal. Unless you are like the world class expert, so maybe you can get hired not because you're OCaml expert, just because you're expert in some domain, right? So
Right.
my goal is I can write my favorite language in my day job. That's the main goal.
Right. So the main job is trying to get functional programming very accessible for any company to write.
Yeah.
That's
and
noble goal.
and there's a very large the JavaScript job market, right? So if you have like you can even introduce BuckleScript, I mean what's called BuckleScript, into your existing JavaScript repo without being noticed by your manager. So that's the main motivation. I was impressed by the JS OCaml, and I think it's impossible back to like 8 years ago to introduce it into the Bloomberg.
Right.
Because it's generally a monolithic, unreadable JavaScript code.
Yeah. You either adopt JS OCaml entirely, or you don't, and living side by side.
Yeah. Unless you are already OCaml shop, like the James Switch, right? But that's
totally. So you left Bloomberg, and then what? Like, what were your plans after Bloomberg?
I was a lucky guy. So in 2017, I decided to move back to my hometown because of the reason of family. Then I was on job market. I mean, looking for the jobs, and I was lucky. Like the Facebook, they contacted me, so they want me to continue maintaining the BuckleScript project. So it was like 5 years now. It was 5. So I get paid by the Meta to work on until recently.
Right. And so at some point, you were compiling OCaml to JavaScript. At some point, Reason was born.
Yes.
How Reason and BuckleScript started integrating?
Yeah. So for people who don't know the background, Reason is a parser which give you passing a JavaScript-like syntax to the a format which is the BuckleScript understand. So so in the early days, like any open source maintainer, if you have find people who want to use your project, you will feel very happy. And so if it's not too difficult to implement, then you go ahead to implement.
Right.
So that's that's how it gets started.
Right. So the idea of Reason is just a parser, just syntax, and then you were like,
it doesn't take too much time. I think just like 1 hour or 2 hours work. So why not?
Yeah, it's a super tiny task. Right.
Yeah. Why not? Yeah, that's how it got started.
Right. But then at some point, Reason got much more famous than OCaml, basically, and then kind of like you became the toolchain for Reason, in a way, right?
Yes, the thing is, so we all call it Reason, like Reason plus BuckleScript.
Exactly.
But the main work actually is done by the BuckleScript.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. That's cool. So what's the hardest part of maintaining a compiler? What's the thing that you realize? Oh, I thought that was easy, but it's the hardest part.
I think
of the compiler.
From my past experience, the most time-consuming. I don't think it's hard. The most time-consuming part actually is not building the compiler itself, because it's a fixed task. Once you have all the domain knowledge, it's not that too difficult to build a optimizing compiler. The most time-consuming part actually is the design. The thing is like for example, like the standard library API. Actually, I don't think we did a good job. If people have different opinions, then someone have to make the call. That's the design like library API. That's one issue. The other is like the design the FFI, how it's interoperate with the JavaScript. I think I made some mistake. If I enrich so for example, like as I explained before, I want to get every feature integrate into the compiler. As long as like someone make a
Right.
feature request, I think it's not too hard to implement. Why not? Like, then quickly you get a feature creep. I would say feature creep. Too many ways to do the FFI.
Right.
So if I think it's also design issue. So I think.
Right. So would you say that the work of a compiler itself is fixed, right? It's like scope, which is like
and it's
the
very
easy
enjoyable.
part.
That's the most enjoyable part.
Right.
So you have the
Right.
compiler become more and more smart to optimize some code. That's the most enjoyment I got from this project. Yeah.
But then like all the area around like FII, the API is the hardest part just because it involves more people, more
it's
opinions.
not hardest part. It's just like the very, very time consuming. And then you don't know the correct answer. You don't know if it did it right, if it's done right or bad.
Right.
That's the most time consuming part.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's a great point. Like feature creep. It's a good
yeah. I think if I can have time to redesign, I don't think I will add so many ways to do the FFI. Yeah.
Right. If you could talk with yourself 8 years ago or 10 years ago, when you start the project, what would you say to yourself?
I think we do hit a niche market. I think we hit a niche market. So there's a market for standard type JavaScript code, standard type language which compiles to efficient JavaScript. I think this is the right market. We should like be focused to
Hey Hongbo, I think, sorry to interrupt. I think you're getting cut a lot.
A bit choppy still.
Yeah, a little bit choppy. I think we see you back now.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes,
perfect.
now it's back. Yeah, it's perfect.
Yeah. Maybe you could start from the start.
Oh yeah. So I think we hit the right market. So there's a demand for a standard type language which compiles to the readable JavaScript. There's demand for that. But we from static point of view, I think we missed. We didn't stay focused. So we were trying to attract as many people as you like, and then you actually lose the user experience. So that's the
right.
So I think if I redo the project, I will like the focus on the prioritize the main feature request from the people who want you target. That's the main takeaway I had. Yeah.
Right. So losing the focus. Would you say that the reason BuckleScript kind of like the entire market that you were integrated with lose focus?
Yes. So I think because you are just got an open source project which has some users, so you try to get so many features like which is not strictly needed from the language point of view. So I think I should like get more focus to like people who actually use your language for production. That's the main number one focus. Yeah, that's number one focus.
Right. So how do you make that happen? Like of course you are part of the author of the compiler, but for instance me or even Gabriel, we both work in ReScript. How anyone can from the JavaScript community that are interested in ReScript, they might play around in the weekends. How can introduce ReScript into their job?
Yeah, so I think the one way to introduce the ReScript into the tech stack is you have your library, which is written in ReScript, but you provide a very small surface API. So you write libraries starting with a pure ReScript. Then you only leave like one or two entry points. So you don't expose every entry point to the JavaScript. Yeah. So then you can start migrating from one module by module. That's the
Right. So you would go from the small modules.
Yeah. Just port them one by one, or have some new green projects, like some of them implemented in the ReScript, and the other is in TypeScript or whatever you want. Yeah.
Right. And how would you convince your boss or your teammates? Like the part, I think the technical part is super easy with ReScript. I think the hard part is actually convincing the people or giving them or making them giving a chance to a new project.
Yeah, and I think that's the difficult part.
Yeah.
I think we did try to de-risk the adoption of ReScript. So we try to generate a readable JavaScript code. So you have like an escape hatch if you feel like this is not the right solution for you. So that's the de-risk one. But another convincing argument I think is we not only provide more type safety, we also provide more opportunities for the optimization. So which is not available in TypeScript, because TypeScript is not the sound. You cannot really use the types for optimization. ReScript is actually the optimizing compiler. We generate a optimized code. Like you can play around with the record, how it's encoded. You can choose either encode it as an array, which is very compact, and the data structure. Also, you can do the name mangling in a record, give it A, B, C, D. You can save a lot of payload, which is this kind of thing are I think it's impossible to do in TypeScript. It's only like you can do it in the Google Closure Advanced mode. But Google Closure Advanced mode is there's not a clear subset of which kind of JavaScript is Google Closure Advanced mode compatible. But in ReScript, this is very freely available to you. So if you want to provide a very high quality JavaScript libraries, ReScript is an option you can give a try.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. So you spent 8 years of your life working in ReScript. How's
7 years. I think it's 7 years.
7 years, sorry.
Yeah.
How is the project going now? Like, are you happy with the progress? Are you happy with the split with Reason and all the things that happened these last years?
So I took a half-year break because I have my first baby. For the split with the Reason, I think it's not that I want to make the choice. That's not a choice to make. So the Reason
Yeah, you're getting a bit choppy again. Like
Bob,
you couldn't get rid of that.
Yeah, it's not all friend today. Wait a bit for this to get fixed. It's super annoying. Okay, I think it's the proof that Hongbo, it might be a robot now.
It looks like he's have some trouble there. Let's wait for. Yeah, he's just probably going to restart his router.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, that was one of. Yeah, he's back. Okay, so let's. Yeah, he's back. And I add him back. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's much better.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah. Yeah. For some reason.
Yeah. So no problem. So yeah, the question was like, how is the project going?
Should we? Yeah. So for the split, the reason with the BuckleScript, the thing is actually it's like we want to make the choice. There's some choice we have to make. So there's multiple reasons for we doing this. Like before the split, we have like multiple release. Whenever we like upgrade the reason parser, we have done some serious like the regressions. So it takes a lot of time to actually fix the bug, and then it's a bug fix another bug. Another issue is like the reason parser grows out of the size, the code size of reason parser grow out of control. The size of the parser actually is larger than the compiler itself. So when I study the compiler of the ReScript, I pay attention to the quality very much, but that's not what I want to say. I think another fundamental issue is like we talked with the owner of the reason, and I think it's made it crystal clear the reason, the focus of reason is the compatibility with the OCaml. Actually, it's not the JavaScript experience. So this is communicating very clear to us, and our priority is the JavaScript user experience. So and because we were the colleagues in the same company, so I feel it's immoral to fork the reason parser and do the thing we want. So we decided to write our own from scratch. That's how we go through the process. Yeah, it's unfortunate, I think, in retrospect, but it's something we have no choice to do it.
Right. Would you say that the ReScript parser now is in a better shape than the reason parser?
It's that I think that from the code size point of view, actually, it's much smaller than the reason parser. But the number one issue is like now the priority is aligned with us. So when we want to add a new feature, like for example, the Unicode, we get a lot of help from the Maxim, who implement the ReScript parser. But you want to get the feature like the Unicode support, I don't think we can get the help from the reason, because their priority is compatible with the OCaml. Yeah, that's the issue.
Right. Yeah, it's a reasonable issue for sure.
Yeah,
for sure. So you mentioned you were working for Facebook. Was like and all the core team, or at least most members of the core team, were part of Facebook. What was the goal to this project inside Facebook?
I cannot talk too much about the internal stuff happening in the Meta, but the high level overview is like Facebook want to focus on the single language for the front end development, for the front end, which is like the Flow. So from the strategic point of view, I think it makes sense. You don't want that's the high level. Yeah.
Right.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Right. So, and I see now that most of the people from ReScript team has been like a little bit disbanded. A few people like Cheng Lu, I think, left the project, or he's not actively working on it. And you have like a breakdown now with being a father, which congratulations, by the way. What's the status of ReScript compiler? I think we listened to the 10th version, but what's next?
Yeah, so I think that for the current status, I think the compiler is in a mature status. But I do have some exciting thing I want to share with you. Like for example, one thing I did a lot of research when I was in my break. So I had a very clear idea how the pattern match compilation will be done in the right way. So currently, the ReScript data encoding is limited by the pattern match compiler. So you cannot for the ADT encoding, you have to use some magic number. So in the future, we have our own pattern match compiler, which can give us the freedom to encoding the ADT. So you can get very close to the TypeScript. The other thing I worked on is flow parser. I also worked on some of the flow projects. So we have the flow parser vendor in the ReScript for the FFI. So I managed to remove around 200,000 line code from the flow parser. So this will also 200,000 line code is not it's dominate our code base. So yeah, so it will also trickle down, like benefit us. And I think one thing which makes me very happy, like for the IDE work, I think Cristiano and other people also spend a lot of time to get IDE much better polish. I think actually that's the #1 priority for the ReScript user experience. So having more solid toolings makes more sense because the language has already been developed for like 30 years. If you take the OCaml into account, right? So the language actually is like developed many years. You don't need you can live without some features, but the IDE, the user experience, is critical to get the adoption of the ReScript.
Right. Yeah. And one question that I'm a little bit curious as well. OCaml community has been like developing some tools for the editor experience, for example. Why cannot we use those tools for ReScript? Like, is there any technical difficulty or?
Yeah. I think overall we made the right choice to decoupling from the OCaml tools. Like I give you one example. Like the OCaml file is going to have magic core. This kind of thing is never going to happen in ReScript. So you have to make a clear cut from OCaml at some time. I was very grateful to like the what OCaml give us, but at some time you have to make a clear cut because that's the.
But would just I don't want to, like just asking all the tooling from the parsers that they give for Merli, for example, like just an example, why cannot we benefit from them without updating the version of the OCaml? You know what I mean? Maybe.
Yeah, I understand. The thing is that Merli is very tied to the internals of the OCaml, like the typed tree. So if you want to benefit from the latest of Merli, then you have to catch up of the minor release of the. So you have to very be tied with the OCaml release cycle, and now with the magic core, and then in the future release you cannot catch up anymore, right? That's the thing. Yeah.
Makes sense. Yeah, I see that some community contributors are doing some great work now with the extension integration. Like they're start to adding some code actions, some stuff. It's much more stable now. So I'm definitely seeing improvement in that area. I totally get the point.
And actually we get also Windows, at least it works. I mean, it's not the most pleasant user experience, but with the Windows support, it's kind of there, right? So I do see some ReScript Windows users, and then it's very, if we rely on some like OCaml tooling, it's very hard to get this support on Windows. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's true. You mentioned that you step down, from working the compile as well after being at that. And we have seen like a lot of posts from you into the OCaml Discord or even ReScript. And I wanted to ask, how is your mental health? Like, how everything treat you? And in a super zero drama question, like, are you well? Are you happy? And
actually, so if you read the hack news, like there will be happen like the 1 or every 3 or 2 months there's some burnout of own source maintainer. So actually, I share exactly the same feeling with the author of those posts until I get such a long break. Then I think I'm mentally repaired after such a long break. And yeah, I'm very super grateful to my employee to give us a long break. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So yeah, just to have it clear, we want you safe for sure. So if you need to recover, take as much time as anything.
That's great to hear. Yeah, I'm glad you could take some time to.
Yeah. And I have very amazing experience during my break. So when I was studying my break, I decided to not do any coding. I did do some reading in depth. So I read a lot of the literatures about the compilers and type systems. So I think I have much better understanding of how everything works than the half a year ago. This is because I just stay away from the real coding and do some reading in depth. Yeah, that's an amazing experience.
That's
and
a good one.
I read a lot of the papers like for the pattern match compilation. That's how I have a better idea how it works now.
Okay,
Yeah, and type
that's a
system
good
stuff.
one.
Yeah.
That's a good one. That's a good one. So let's talk about a little bit of the community. Do you think that the reason, the ReScript community is growing, or is growing more than you expected, or naturally? What's your opinion on that?
I think during the half a year which I was absent, I think it's as healthy as it's better than I expected. So I feel like the people take over my hands and do a lot of work, and I was super grateful to people who did the work on the IDE. Actually, I think that's the critical part for ReScript to get adopted. Yeah, so it's better than I expected. And that's why I think I will study to contribute to the compiler, but in the next few months. But because it's not my full-time job, so it will not be as much as before. Yeah.
Right. So you're working full-time now on Flow?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, we will not try to ask a lot of questions about Meta, since it cannot be public.
Yeah, I cannot too much tell you too much.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. It's not an interrogation. We're not
Actually,
getting any
you
headlines.
can still find my open source work on the GitHub. Yeah.
Right. Makes sense. That's cool. So we want, now that I think COVID is over, we kind of desire a ReScript conference or some sort of excuse to meet everybody. Are you planning to do that? Is Patrick working on that, or it's not really on the plan?
I think the Patrick mentioned sometime, but I think we need to check if it's I think I need to check with him and the other team members.
Right. So if somebody wants to join the ReScript team and work on either the compiler or, as we mentioned before, all the edge areas that are more harder, how anyone can join?
So I think it's very easy to make a contribution to the ReScript community, like writing blogs, using ReScript and write the pure ReScript libraries. From the compiler point, as I mentioned before, the critical, I think the bottleneck of ReScript adoption is the IDE. So if you have some time to work on the IDE and the editor integration, that would be great. From the compiler point of view, I think if you want to make some non-trivial contribution, then you need to get a long-term committing. So the compiler itself actually is quite complex. So if you if you want to contribute in a non-trivial way, then you need a committing in long term. So once you have some sustainable contribution, we will invite you to give you a commit access to the project.
Makes sense. Right. So somebody asked on the chat, how's the PPX list for ReScript? And I want to rephrase it a little bit. I think we saw a lot of times where PPX are discouraged due to performance, to being a black hole, errors, like a lot of reasons. And you mentioned that at some point ReScript would love to have, or you would love to have for ReScript, their own PPXs, their own macro system, whatever. After the break that you learned a lot and studied a little bit, did you have another idea on how to implement that, or what's the new way?
So actually, I had a lot of experience with the metaprogramming. It's my master thesis. Actually, it's a metaprogramming language. So before the PPX was born, there's something called the Common P4. Do you know that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Actually, I was the maintainer. I was one of the maintainers of Common P4. So I know
I didn't know that. Nice.
Yeah, so I know all the good and bad parts of the metaprogramming.
Nice.
So the thing with the PPX is like a large surface API of the compiler internals were exposed, right? So the PPX in OCaml, like for each version of OCaml, the AST was changed. then your code relies on some old PPX. We no longer work on the new PPX. There's some solutions, ad hoc solution, but it's not like the complete the solution. So for ReScript, it's a very small community. So if you write some code, probably you are not going to maintain it in 1 year or in 2 years, right? So your code is, and if you use some PPX, then it will be outdated. No one can take your code. Maintain your code. That's why it was discouraged. So for ReScript itself, I think we are more stable than OCaml. So actually, we don't plan to change the AST itself. So if you work directly with the ReScript is AST, then I think it's more safe, because the thing in the current situation is that people use the OCaml compiler's API to write the AST transformation for the ReScript code base, and these things are not tied together, so they may be broken sometime. That's the issue.
Right. So did you kind of like thought about the system to make it only write PPXs or some sort of PPXs only for ReScript? Is that the solution for the team?
I encourage people to do this way. Yeah, exactly. That's why the reason parser is so super bloated. Why? You know why it happens? Because the reason parser use something called migrate pass tree, and then there's like the migrate pass tree version 2, and then it gets bloated and it's even larger than our compiler. That's
I heard about that.
Yeah, I think it uses that to match previous OCaml versions and to migrate. Yeah. That makes sense. So somebody on the chat as well asked, will ReScript will compile to WebAssembly?
Actually, I also did some research in my break on the WebAssembly. I wrote the WebAssembly interpreter and a compiler compiles WebAssembly for a toy language.
Okay.
Yeah, that's something I want to do, but I cannot promise you anything because I have my full-time job. I think it's worth to. It's a valid market. It's an issue. It's a valid market. There's demand. Just like we for the ReScript, there's demand for a Sony type of JavaScript for a Sony type language compared to readable JavaScript. I think there's a demand for a language which is optimized for the WebAssembly experience. There was some language called Green, but my impression that it's not the maturity of the. It still needs some polishment work. Yeah, that's the. I think there's demand for.
We interview Oscar on the show. That's a good idea. I remember the beginning of BuckleScript, and I'm getting really back on the days where you were trying to get pre-processing WebGL ideas into BuckleScript. Was that part of the plan, or?
I think the WebGL is by some of the community member, right? The pre-reprocessing. You mean the reprocessing, the library?
Yeah.
Is by some very nice community member. It's not done by me.
Okay. Yeah, I might misunderstood that. Now that most of the team are not fully working on ReScript, at least not full time, is money the issue, or what's the real reason because of that?
So at first, I think people should not worry about the.
No, I didn't want to make it as bad. It's just like.
So the language the compiler itself has been developed for many years. Like if you take the experience of the ML Camel Lite, right? So actually it has been developed for many years. I think the type system bug actually is less than the TypeScript or other like the Elm or PureScript. I think the bug in the compiler itself is much less than the counterparts. The main bottleneck in my opinion is the ID, and I see Cristiano and other people are actively working on it. So don't worry. I think it's a healthy state. With regard to your question, the money, I think the money will help in the long term, but not in the short term. So having some like the like the set up like the ReScript Foundation, like set up for the we benefit us in the long term. Another thing is like it will help us to develop a good relationship with the commercial user of ReScript. So they will have like the communication channel to the ReScript core developers. That's the main that's a helpful part. Yeah. So yeah, I think it will benefit us in long term, but not in the short term. Yeah.
It's amazing. So so me as a company, I want to help like the ReScript compiler, the association. Should I just reach out to Patrick and ask for a bank deposit, something like that? How can I contribute?
So you should check with Patrick. So the story I had from the Patrick is like the donation is not that much, and then the time the money is spent in maintaining the donation actually will be outweigh the cost of itself. Did I make it clear?
Yeah.
That's so you need to have one guy, a full-time guy to work on the accounting stuff. Then the donation cannot sustain the accounting. Yeah, that's
right.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. And Hongbo, how do you see the project in 5 years?
I think, in my opinion, I have like the pattern match compilation is I think we have least resistance from because it's just purely improvement of to give out a lot of freedom in the data encoding. So you get even more good integration with that's the one thing I want to introduce. The other is like the on carry, the good support for the on carry. But this is controversial stuff. This is controversial.
It's controversial. But to be honest, like the first time I heard of this, I thought you guys were crazy. But then the more I use ReScript now, the more I see the appeal for it. Like I agree it very much. I actually expect it for it now.
Yeah. In my opinion, I think the on carry by default is a good default, but there's some discussion going on. So after these two feature landing, I think the language will be pretty much in a good shape, in my opinion. So there's no big change needed for the language itself. So you can focus on. The other thing, I think if I design language from scratch today, I would focus on the editor integration with language design with integration, which should go hand in hand. Instead of like you write a compiler, get a batch compilation, then you write another editor toolings. So yeah. So I hope Cristiano and other people will help improve the development experience of the IDE. Yeah.
Right. So what are others like? Let's imagine ourselves in a state where the language is in a good shape after these two features. Aside from the IDE, what are other features that are needed? So if we can start working on them now, that would be amazing. So what are those?
I think from the one thing missed, I think is some thing like package manager or Kaggle stuff like the rest. So we have very flexible FFI. So pretty much we can write a FFI interpret with the JavaScript very easily. I mean, in a couple of minutes. But it's a double-edged sword. It's a double-edged sword. So it is so easy to make the FFI. So everybody will try to find some library in the JavaScript community, then introduce in your ReScript project. So it's good. It's good stuff. So you can get the job done. But from the community point of view, we should encourage people to write the pure ReScript libraries instead of relying on some third-party JavaScript libraries. In that case, it will help us to grow the ReScript community. So you should have some place like a ReScript hub for the ReScript libraries, so you can easily for discovery finding high-quality ReScript libraries. Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, that's a missing part.
Yeah. So this is what Elm, I think. Well, many other languages, but I think the idea is what Elm does. Right. Yeah, it's interesting because they're Elm in their system, the FFI it's super different from ReScript, right? In ReScript you can
I think I on two street.
Yeah, I
Elm
think
is
one
like
is
you cannot do any FFI serious in
Yeah.
Elm. But in ReScript, you can do anything you want.
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah. So both there's definitely both have a lot of pros. So on the pro of ReScript, it's super flexible. On the contra, it's super flexible, so you have like access to the entire JavaScript. And yeah, on Elm it's just super robust and but you cannot bind to anything. So yeah, it's interesting for sure.
Yeah, there's something called a port, if I remember correctly, for the Elm.
Yeah.
You have to do the asynchronous in the FFI.
Yeah, it's interesting. So are you inspired by Elm somehow? And do you follow their community or their changes?
Not really, but when I studied the BuckleScript, I did an investigation of because I want to write the like ML like language in the front end. So I did investigate in Elm in 2014, I think. But back to then, I think the Elm is not very mature. I give you one example, like so the pattern match exhaustive checker was not supported. That's and also the tail call was not supported. So that's why I just decided to write my own one.
Nice. Yeah, that's something that I don't do. if the project is not mature, I don't invent my own language. So congratulations, Bob.
Thanks. Yeah.
So yeah, how was the new website? I think ReScript was born as a tool to be like the one source of truth. And one of the biggest changes that, of course, everybody can benefit a lot is that having one website, one documentation, one playground. How has that benefit the community?
I think it makes us look more professional. I think first, all the credits should not go to me. I mean, actually, I did very few work. All the credit I think is go to the Patrick and other risk contributors. It's a great thing because when we do some marketing, we can direct people to the official website. And we have like the nice documentation by the Patrick on how I think it's very, very helpful. Yeah, very, very useful.
Nice. And one question that I think everybody kind of like appears in the forum from time to time is that there must be, or people demand a lot of async await keyboard features. I'm not saying that we need it or I want it or I don't want to jump on it, but why do you think that people ask? Like my question is like why people need it or why people think they need it?
Yeah. Actually, I was the kind of person like if it's not too hard to implement, why not? Actually, I was like I did make a proposal to async, and there's some pushback from team members, and I was like not in a good mental state. So I spent the weekend to get the job done, but nobody, some of them not didn't appreciate. So I didn't push it forward.
Right. So why do you think that people want the feature, or they think they need the feature?
I understand there's demand. I understand that async it makes code more readable. It also, but it all can be like abused, like for trivial stuff, like the option monad, right? The option monad. Yeah, I was in a. Just to be honest with you, I was in a camp. Why not? but the thing is, I understand. But I agree with the other camp. It's not essential feature. That is mostly a syntactic sugar. So you can. I mean, it's not like something. Oh, you cannot live without it. It's not an essential feature. Yeah, it's nice to have. It's something nice to have, but it's not a essential feature of the language.
Yeah,
right.
Definitely.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think that you all the time like kind of balance a feature from implementation time, which is always like short, and then like the back of your mind says, no, let's wait a bit for the maintenance because maintenance is way harder and way painful, way time consumer if we add this feature. my question would be
Mhm.
how to make that decision. Like how you can say this gets in, this gets out, maintenance it's okay, or maintenance not okay.
It's always like the return on investment called ROI, right? So it's
Right.
like you need a lot of investment to get a very, a marginal return. Then it's probably not a higher priority. So if you
Right.
have I think if you have a small investment but you get a huge return, then it will be justified.
Right.
Yeah.
And would that return on investment or the maintaining cost, would that change if ReScript team would be 10 persons? Would it change if we want to add those features that are high maintainable but high demanded as well?
I want to be honest with you. For the core compiler, I think having 10 people will not help that much. I think
Right.
having
Yeah,
like
yeah.
the three
I mean,
experts, having three
yeah.
experts is more helpful than like the 10 people. One
Right.
people, of course, one people part time definitely is not enough. But I think like having 10 people may not be helpful. Having like the 2 or 3 people full time for the project is enough.
Right.
Yeah, it's
Right. So there's this golden ratio of effort. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah, so I think if you have any question, or if you, Gabriel, have any question, or if chat has any question, I think I ran all of mine.
Yeah, that's just some good stuff. Yeah, I think we covered a lot of people's questions, right? Like the biggest interest, like future stuff, like the history, like getting to know Bob more. That was great. We had a lot of people with us here, and I think the Async Await and VPXs are like the things that people ask the most. Like in the forums, you can see like a lot of duplicated stuff, just asking the same stuff. What's the future for meta programming? When I'm gonna get Async and Await? Like you see over and over and over. So yeah, that was great to hear from Bob. Also donation, right? Donations are important. You want to say something, Bob?
Yeah, I'm very. It's my my great pleasure to be here with the Gabriel and the David. And I think it's even more challenging for the Gabriel to wake up at like 7 a.m. So thank you very much. And the ReScript is a very it's a small community, and I think everyone's help it matter. So I want to say thank you to everybody to make the language still sustainable, and yeah, I think we will continue investing in it to make the useful to other
Amazing.
people. Yeah, thank you very much.
Amazing. Yeah, we are investing. I'm pretty invested a lot in his
Yeah.
script. Like we are using it, the whole code base here in Walnut. So I'm very interested. And yeah, that was a great show. Thank you. I'm actually thank you, Hongbo, for sharing your time with us. I know it's late for you there. I have your daughter, and I enjoyed this quite a lot. It was really fun.
Cool. Thank you
So
very
Yeah,
much.
thanks for
yeah,
coming.
Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you very much.
I think I take this time to answer the question from the Walnut. I remember someone from the Walnut asked why the exception, the backtrace, right? The backtrace.
Right.
Yeah. Yes.
The thing we have come some minutes. So the thing is, yeah. So the thing is, ReScript has because of legacy from the OCaml, it takes the encoding the exception and the extensible variant in the same way. So the exception and extensible variant in the same way, unless you remove the extensible variant. And so it's controversial. It's not like this.
I see.
It's not I didn't take a look at it. It's just like there's some like the trade-off. You have some trade-off to make it. Yeah.
Yeah, this is actually a good question. I forgot to add it here. That's actually a very good question. Like exceptions in his script, right? People get a bit like weirded out by them. Why
Yeah.
they look at that shape? I wasn't aware that it was because of that, like the extensible variant.
Yeah, extensible open. I think open variant. Yeah.
Oh yes, open. It's open variant. Yeah. Yeah, it's great. And now I know one more thing. feeling smarter already. So yeah, thanks everyone for
Thank
coming,
you.
and thank
Thank you,
you
everyone.
Hongbo again. It was pretty fun. I enjoyed it a lot. For everyone that's on the chat and want to watch it later, we'll post the recording soon to YouTube, so you can watch it again and etc. So yeah, see you everyone on the next one, and
Yeah, and thanks
that was
both
it.
Thank
for
you.
the
Have a good
show
day.
and for ReScript.
Yeah.
See
Yeah,
you,
Thank
man.
you. See you.
thanks, Bob.
Bye.
See you. Bye bye.